Welcome back to my sewing room. You probably know that I've been struggling mightily with the camera situation. A couple days ago I had filmed, quote unquote, the making of this little bag, and nothing worked. I had one of those days where I was kind of turning into a cyborg. Every sort of electronic device I touched just was not going to help. So I had to quit, and the bag is basically made. There are pins in the top, and I am going to go over how this was constructed. These are the basically unconstructed handles, which I'm going to try to record today, and then we can finish up this little bag and move on to our next project. I have quite a few of those in mind, by the way. This one I'm going to call Stone Soup Market Bag. If you're familiar with the story of Stone Soup, then you'll kind of maybe get the little idea of where that name is coming from. But I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and finish up this little bag, and then we'll talk about our next project, which is going to be the McCall's bag that I'm going to do for my daughter, the little bee bag. I think that pattern number is 5882. I've been hauling stuff around to and from with the wedding and all that, but now that it's done, I am trying to get back to my normal stuff here. Let's see, 5822 is the McCall's pattern that we're going to be making. 5822. And we'll be going over what we need for that as soon as we finish up this little bag right here. So for the handles, I want a little bit of structure. And if I were to make the handles in the traditional way by folding, half in and then folding half in and then folding in half, I would have a fairly decent handle with this fabric. But what I want to point out is, if you have a thinner fabric, something that isn't sturdy, even with that basically, 6 fold. Let's see, it's the fabric, and then here's 1, so that's 2, and then 3, 4. So you've got like 4 layers of fabric right here. If your little piece of fabric for the handle doesn't feel sturdy enough, then you can always do an iron-on interfacing to kind of give it a little bit of strength. Make sure that the iron-on interfacing is something that can be washed. You don't want to make a washable bag, but then have something within the handles that should not be washed. So I'm not going to need to do that. This broadcloth is a nice heavy woven, like slightly downgraded twill almost. So I won't need to do that, but I wanted to point out that that would be something you might want to consider doing. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of the pressing part of this, and then I'm going to explain how our bag is constructed. And I will be making more of these with the advent of new laws governing the use of plastic bags in the markets. Supermarket, retail markets, we're really, kind of moving away from the use of those disposable plastic bags. And even though I feel like a lot of us are mindful of that fact and try to reuse those bags as often as possible, they do still tend to end up in large numbers in situations that are harmful to animals, plants, and earth in general. So having something that you can make, you can use, you can wash, you can reuse for a long, long time, just makes sense to me. You know, it's I kind of equate it to getting used to a new cell phone. You just have to get used to the idea that it's not going to be convenient until you figure out how it works for you. So I would suggest just sticking one, in your purse, in your car. Take it with you and kind of introduce the idea to yourself as you're shopping. It's not weird. Everybody else is doing the same thing. So when you pull this out and say, put some of the groceries in this, the grocery store people or whoever, Walmart or whatever, they're not going to look at you like, you're some kind of a strange anomaly. But I recommend that you just kind of try to get used to it. Maybe even just take it to the co-op, if you visit the co-op, and try it out. I plan to have a number of these. I'm just going to keep them in my truck and carry them with me and try to get in the habit of using them instead of bringing home more plastic bags. Okay, so what I'm doing to make my handles, in case you've never done this before, it's so simple. So this piece of fabric is, if I remember correctly, we are at 31.5 inches. The reason for that is I wanted to have an extra amount on each end to give me at least 27, which I think I did. I might have gotten in a hurry and let's see, let's pretend we're here and here. Yeah, so I have at least 27 inches. And the way I came up with 27 inches, that's what's comfortable for me. You might want to have something that you can put over one shoulder, over your head, and use it as a crossbody. You might want to have longer handles. You might want to have shorter handles. But I have figured out over time that 27 inches for me is perfect. So basically just look at a bag you have that you like and measure, and then add some extra, an inch or two on each side, because we're going to be tucking that into the bag and stitching it in the top, which I will show you in a moment. So I folded this, which I forgot about that too. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches wide. Okay, so we're 31.5 inches long and we're 6 inches wide. I folded it in half this way and pressed it so that I would have a center line to meet up to. So now I'm taking one end and I'm going to fold it toward the center line so that the raw edge is touching the folded, pressed line. And then I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to press again. And I am pressing because if I do this, I may distort all of this, and I want it to stay rather straight and lined up like it should. I also don't really want to hit that center line with the iron and press it out. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. I'm going to pull that raw edge over to meet the second raw edge, and I'll show you that kind of up close. So like that. So now I'm going to bring this raw edge over here to meet this raw edge, and I'm going to press that basically the same way. Just press, pick up, like that. And trying again not to distort the fabric in the process. Okay. Then I'm going to fold this in half, like this, so that the raw edge of this and the raw edge of this are encased in the middle, like this. And when I'm done doing all this folding, what I have left should be about 1.5 inches, and that is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to press so that my folded edges are as even as possible, just doing the press, lift method. I'm really trying hard not to turn or change direction with my fabric. And it's a lot easier to keep those folded edges as close together as possible when you're just doing that press and lift. It's not pulling and tugging and then pressing the fabric in a position that you don't want it to be. You really kind of want those two folded edges to be very, very lined up. Okay, so there's one handle completed. We'll do the second one as quickly as possible. And while I'm doing that, I will talk about the bag. So it is a print fabric that I found in a little baggie at a thrift store in Everett about 3 years ago. It's tossed pigs and cows. And since my sister is a cow farmer, I thought, wow, how cute. I've got to make it for her. So I did. The inside is a gingham, and the reason I chose gingham is the cows and the pigs have what would appear to be a gingham print. The pigs might be more of a fence, but that's the cow little print. And then there's little apples and some berries and some butterflies mixed in as well. So the gingham lining on the inside is a pink. And we're going to talk about the construction. It does have a boxed bottom, which I think all the market bags really do benefit from having a boxed bottom. They're very easy to make. And this particular design, it is so easy to make a pocket on the inside or a pocket on the outside, multiple pockets. You could even do a zipper pocket on the outside if you wanted a place to keep your car keys, if you were, say, at a farmer's market or something and you didn't feel like carrying, just multitudes of bags and keys and wallets and whatnot. It's kind of a one-stop shop bag where you can just take all of your stuff. If you're at a flea market, you could make a pocket on the front to carry a water bottle, a little pad and paper if you needed to. So we'll talk about the pocket maybe on a different bag. I recently made one for my husband, and it had a pocket on the front that was basically this big, and then on the back it had another pocket that was this big, a little bit taller, and then divided in half so there's a space there for a water bottle, and on the other side, whatever other item he wanted. He attends a yoga class after work, so it's a good place for his yoga mat and whatever else he needs to carry with him to his class. That's another great thing about these bags is you can customize them to meet any need. You can give them as gifts. You can use them as a way to present a gift. You could put some flowers, some kind of a snack some nice crackers, some cheese, a bottle of wine. Take it over to your neighbors. All kinds of things like that. Use the pocket to hold the card. Okay, so I'm almost finished. Folding and pressing, and then I'll talk about, like I've said 3 times now, the bag design. Okay, so now we have both of our handles, which we will need to stitch, and I'll show you that as well. But anyway, so the way this bag is constructed is you cut a length of fabric that you want, and I truly cannot remember what this was. I think it was 28 inches long, and it was, let's see if I can jog my memory. Where's my measuring tape? I had it moments ago. Oh, good Lord. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, well, I was using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so that would have been 19 inches wide. And let's see if I can figure this out. Starting here, 21. It was 24 inches long. So 24 inches long gives you enough to make a nice seam in the bottom, as well as a 1 inch folded down top edge, which is what we need to have on this bag. I made both the outside fabric and the inside fabric identical. And then the bottom, for the boxed bottom, we did a 4 inch boxed bottom, which means we cut out a 2 inch square on the bottom, and I'll kind of give an example of that in a moment. And then we just stitched up the side seams, and because there's a fold across the bottom, we don't have a stitch. We do not have to have a stitch there. And then the 2 inches, we made our boxed bottom. We inserted the lining with wrong sides together. So the wrong side of the lining to the wrong side of the outer fabric, pinned it across the top, and my recommendation for that step is, after you get the lining inserted, pin on the side seams first, then pin in, across the top. You want those pretty well lined up, nice and neat. So we are not going to stitch this until we finish our handles. So the handles need to be stitched completely, and then we're going to figure out where we want them to go. And most of our bags that we make, we stitch it like this. Let me move over so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Most of them we stitch when we're creating the bag with our handles this way, because when we're finished stitching, we will be pulling the handles up toward the top. That's not the case with this bag. This bag, we're going to stitch our handles coming from the top outward. Let's see if I can hold the camera where you can actually see what I'm talking about. Oh, like this. So this handle will be coming out, and we're going to measure probably about 2 inches from each end, and then the same thing on the other side. So the handles will be installed first. We'll need to pin them in place, and then the final step on this easy bag is to stitch handles into the top edge. And we're going to go around the top edge 2 times, once to catch the handles and once as a little finish around the very top. And I will show that when we get to that part. The first thing I want to do, though, is stitch along this edge, the folded edge of my handle. So I'm going to be stitching along that edge, and then to give it a little bit more of a finished appearance, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the folded edge. So this will be stitched down. This will be just a complementary stitch, and then you can go ahead and do, you know, another 2 stitches if you want to. I have even I've drawn lines and done kind of a zigzag, you know, pattern back and forth to kind of give it almost a quilted look. You can literally, you can do anything you want. You can actually embroider this if you want to. So I will do one, then I'll finish up the other one. I can't do that, because if I pause this video, I'm having such a hard time figuring out how to use this camera. And I've learned if I pause at any point to save time, then I lose the video and I have to make a new video, and it's just too much. It's just too much for me. So until I figure that out, I'm just going to have to go ahead and keep recording. And then if, you know, basically at this point, if you want to, you can just skip forward. I know it's kind of it's not very good, but it's all I've got. And rather than making 2 videos on how to make a bag, I'd rather just do 1 video. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I am going to use my blue thread that I used to construct the bag, because I like the idea of blue. Let's see if I can get this thing to come down just a little bit. Where you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So my plan is to use this blue thread to sort of complement the look. There's a lot of blue color that matches this blue thread in the outer fabric. So I'm going to use the first stitch to go down the 2 folded edges. I need these to stay together. I'm not going to pin them because I don't need to, but if you feel like you want to do that, obviously it won't hurt anything. I do recommend that you go in with your pins horizontally rather than vertically this way. Give that a try. I've got my machine set to needle down when I stop, so it'll hold my fabric in place. Okay, I forgot to mention I'm using the width of my foot as my guide, and I'm just going to clothesline stitch here. I've lifted the needle and I'm going to pull this out, but I'm not going to cut the thread. I'm just going to turn around like this and continue stitching. Okay, and I'm going to, of course, finish up with another, just keep on going. It's called clothesline because I'm just adding things as I go. Make sure I'm lined up properly. I can cut my thread, I can cut the two pieces apart and come down here and cut the loop, which is where I was turning my turning my fabric around to continue stitching. Now at this point, if you want to continue, if you want to add more rows of stitching, you can do so. I think I'm kind of happy with the way this looks for now. I don't think adding another row of stitching is really going to do that much for it. It's still nice and soft as a handle should be. I can hold it nicely. Okay, so the next step here is to pin, like I showed you before, this into the bag. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't know if the camera is going to pick this up or not, considering how low everything is. Okay. FYI, I have ordered a book to sort of help me learn how to do this. I'm like the only person on the planet who does not know how to do a video with a video camcorder. That's kind of sad. Okay, so I'm going to go from my side seam right here. There's a side seam. And I'm going to measure in, I think, considering the width of the opening in the bag, I'm going to measure in 4 inches. And you can use a friction pin. I did test this fabric when I originally made it. It is perfect for the iron to remove the friction pin ink. So I'm making a dot right there, and I'm going to do the same thing on this end, measuring in 4 inches. Okay. So now I'm going to take my handle, make sure it's not twisted or it's lined up the way I want it to be. And I'm going to, in this case, remove this pin. And I want the outer edge of this handle to be on that 4-inch mark. And I'm going to go in by, well, let's just see here. I'm going to go in by, I think, a 1/2 inch. No, I'm going to go in by exactly 1 inch. And I can also mark that with my friction pin just to kind of help me along. So I'm going to make a mark right across the top, right there. And I'll be able to see. So I'm putting the handle into where that mark is, and I'm lining it up with that other mark. So it's exactly on that 4-inch dot there, and it's encased at the 1-inch mark. And now all I need to do is pin, and I'm going to pin horizontally to hold it nice and tight. And I'm going to come around